Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Innate Wealth Weekly Wrap. How are you today, gents? Mirko, how are you travelling today, mate? Going okay?
Always good coming into a Friday, even though I can't do much for the weekend. The notion that it is a weekend is always winning.
Indeed it is, mate. And Luke, how are you, buddy?
Mate, I'm going really well, mate. It's finals time in Melbourne. Tonight we've got a ripper game on, I think, the Cats and the D's. So looking forward to sitting down and watching that. And then tomorrow the Mighty Doggies, to see them come home with a wet sail with a bit of luck. So fingers crossed. It
is nice, the prospect of another all-Victorian grand final potentially. So hopefully it plays out that way for us our teams who aren't in there on the big stage.
Absolutely. And to watch it in Perth is just makes a lot of sense.
Well, maybe that's a good segue in for Perth. And Nick, not to disrupt your stats for the week, mate, I'm itching to hear them. But McGowan might be the smartest person in Australia. He's just pulled out a $5.6 billion surplus for Western Australia, record.
Wow.
Mate, you know what? We should call him Teflon Charlie, mate. The man can do no wrong. Shuts down the state, doesn't let anyone in, and just lets the money roll in. It is an amazing outcome. Look, it's obviously connected to the resource, to the iron ore price and so on. Make hay while the sun shines. That's the reality of that one, and credit to them. It'll be interesting if the iron ore price was $100 a ton.
Well,
in terms of the impact on that.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Luke, because I actually did a bit of reading about this, because I'm not calling anyone Teflon, certainly not the iron ore price. My numbers have iron ore going at $233 US a ton in May, which was 2.5 times the level they were at a year earlier. They are now at $132 or $133 last night, so they've dropped by $100 a ton. My understanding is that for every US dollar the iron ore price goes up, that adds $83 million to the WA economy. $100 drop, therefore, is a $8.3 billion effect in the wrong direction for the WA economy. So
you're saying the $5.6 billion surplus is not so good after all?
I'm going to hold my breath and just see what happens in the next year. So I wouldn't be spending all that cash in one go, is what I'd be saying to the great man.
Well, mate, your stats are always impeccable, Mirko. And whilst you're on a roll there, would you be as kind to share the stats this week? And I suspect, as a segue in, notably yesterday, market was down just under 2% for the first time we've seen a solid day like that for a little while. Yeah,
definitely in the local market, we were down nearly 2%, off 1.9. And it was a lot of it's got to do with the concerns, and it's certainly not just here in Australia, around the Delta outbreak that we're seeing, and particularly in the United States. So we can't read too much into the US this week, because they had Monday was a Labor Day holiday for them this week, so that the markets were closed. We've only had 3 days trading so far, but nonetheless, the Dow's off about 1.4, Nasdaq's off about 0.75. All Ords has bounced back a little bit today, up about 0.5%, albeit it was up as much as 1% early in the day, and it's given some back. So the Australian market's off 1.6% at the moment for the week. And a few little bits and pieces of information. The RBA met this week, Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month. Certainly held rates on hold at 0.1, 10 basis points. Still sort of reiterating that that the target for government bonds is still at 10 basis points till 2024. So still sending out a clear message not to expect a lot in that point. But with GDP increasing by 0.7% for the June quarter, aka we dodged a bullet there, not going into technical recession during that time. They're still concerned also, and they actually make mention of the Delta variant in the report as well. And they're just not sure how it's going to play out. So they're being very cautious the way they're going about it. In the United States, tapering, whether it will occur this year, we'll probably know a bit better. What's today, the 10th of September, 21st, 22nd, they meet for 2 days, US Central Bank this month. So the next 10, 15 days, and we'll probably get a better gauge as to where they're heading. But there's certainly a lot of talk about this Delta variant, and and it's really tearing shreds through the hospital system in the United States, particularly at the moment. So there's a fair bit of concern around that.
Yeah, that's really really hard, that situation in the US, isn't it? It sort of doesn't look nice watching from afar, and perhaps that maybe, Luke, to some news we saw this week goes a little way to explain where Biden's really cracked down on some of the vaccine pathway.
Look, he has, and I guess what we've all noticed is a change in language, I guess, from not only Biden, but actually here in Australia and across the globe, where, you know, I think it was Macron who first came out and spoke about, you know, we're going to allow the vaccinated to go and be free, and we're going to keep the unvaccinated, you know, locked inside, so to speak. And we all kind of raised our eyebrows and thought this is kind of a bit draconian. Today, Biden had announced that, you know, he's actually mandated that 100 billion US essential workers must get vaccinated. So the choice has been removed. It's now got to happen, and he titled it with "Our patience is wearing thin." You'll notice that Gladys Berejiklian has been pleading with society to do the same thing, and likewise Daniel Andrews has been doing the same thing. And Gladys, to her credit, came back with some hope. I think they have Freedom Day on the 18th of October, if I'm right. In Victoria, I think we're scheduled for March 2036, so we'll be okay with the way we're going. My God. So look,
how many days are we into lockdown, guys? From our 7-day lockdown, our snap lockdown? What are we, 60-something days at the moment?
Are we at week 10, are we? Something like that?
Solid 7 days.
Look, you know, the scary part is, you know, you just kind of lose count and the days roll into each other. So it just becomes one of those things. So
imagine buying acreage from the Victorian state government. Like you'd be bidding for like 20, 30 acres, and you might end up with like 130. It'd be fantastic.
Based on the math.
How good would that be?
Yeah. Well, I think I saw as well this week that we had a mandated for aged care workers to be vaccinated in Victoria too, didn't we? Was that announced this week?
Yeah, I believe it was too, Shane. I believe it was. So look, they're definitely, the language has changed, and I think there's this massive push for this to occur. And the question you ask yourself is, why is the case? Well, we've given up on the fact that we're going to go back to zero. So zero cases is not going to happen, and the only way we can actually manage this is through vaccination. And that killer number is 80%. And if we can get to 80%, where 80% of society is fully vaccinated, we believe, based upon the Doherty reporting, that we should be able to cope, and our hospital system should be able to cope under that sort of stress. So look, crazy times as always, mate. Crazy times.
And thinking of a crazy time, fellas, it's this weekend a moment to reflect on 20 years ago that we saw the world change forever at 9/11. And I was watching a small snippet this morning, and it's still hard to believe when you see that second airplane fly into the World Trade Center and you actually see the footage of it. It's just unthinkable. But 20 years on, fellas.
No, I distinctly recall, obviously that happened when it was evening here in Melbourne, from that point of view, and I was feeding our firstborn. So I was doing, Mandy had gone to sleep and I was feeding Nick. And so I was sitting there, I was watching the news. I think it was 10:30 news at night time, and the news announcer had announced that a plane had flown into a building, into the World Trade Center. So at that point in time, it was an accident. So obviously you could see the smoke billowing out, and then you saw the second plane hit. And I remember sitting there holding my son and looking at him thinking, oh my God, what sort of a world have we brought you into? And, you know, 20 years later, the rest is history. The world has become a very unstable place in 20 years.
Indeed it has, mate. You know, I'm sure everyone out there will have a thought as to that moment where we were at that point in time. And yeah, certainly I'll be checking out a doco or two this weekend to just, you know, take stock of it. And you know, I still have those memories, fellas, when we went to the World Trade Center and saw, you know, the footprint of it. It's hard to think of it. It really is an extraordinary thing. So
amazing memorial that's been built there as well. If we're, you know, one day when we're allowed to travel again, I encourage people to have a good look at that and just take the time to, you know, reflect. There's a little stat there that every now and then along the memorial, there's the names of all the people that were killed on that site, and every now and then there'll be like a white flower, next to a name, and there's somebody that does this every day, 365 days a year. If it was going to be somebody's birthday that day, they put a little white flower in the memorial thing.
Wow.
It's actually really powerful.
And it's a frightening thing, and you sort of, sorry, Luke, I just read an article last weekend actually, and they termed it the children of 9/11, and they had the children, like to your point, Luke, Nick as a little baby. There's a whole lot of those children, unfortunately, that have lost their parent on that day, or a loved one on that day, and they fast forward, and it's quite heartbreaking to read and look at. But I think it's one of those things that we can't ignore and sweep under the carpet because it's real, and it's certainly worth remembering, I feel, this weekend.
Oh, without question, and I think, look, for all of us, there was also a number of Australians who died as well at that time, and it was a global event because New York being such a global city. Not only were Americans impacted, and we lost over 3,000 people, but the footprint was from around the world. I know we had a teacher who taught us at school, and his brother was in one of the World Trade Centers, and he passed on that day. So it brought that whole thing home where it was real. And then you remember the impacts on the market. I remember coming into work that morning at 4 o'clock, and the share market opening that day, and I think the share market was down 15% within the first 15 minutes of trade. And you thought, oh my God. And Wall Street couldn't trade. And Wall Street, I think, Wall Street didn't trade for a week and a half or 2 weeks.
They actually shut it down. Yeah, they had to shut it down.
It was bizarre.
Unreal, isn't it?
So it was, crazy time. And we've had the benefit of going to New York, and we've had the benefit of being there. You actually realise how compact and small that area is. Just staggering.
Well, I think on that note, gents, we should wrap the week and bid everyone a nice weekend out there. And we hope the sun shines and everyone can get out and enjoy some fresh air and make the most of the weekend. So enjoy, and we'll see you online again next week. Actually, before we go, aged care. We had a request this week, fellas, for aged care discussion in the Pulse. So next Wednesday I'll be online with an aged care discussion. So if you can,
very good idea.
Very good. That'll be fun.
Take care.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Okay.
See ya.
Ciao.
Bye.